the SEAT Ateca. Now, this car might have been a little late to the SUV party when it arrived back in 2016, but this car showed that family SUVs can be both practical and fun to drive. But this car is now 6 years old. Can it still fight it against the newest competition? Well, that's what we're going to find out right now. To give the Ateca a fighting chance, SEAT has updated it recently with new head and taillights, and the bumpers have been changed to give a more muscular look. Oh, and the Ateca badge has been replaced with a handwritten styled one. SEAT hasn't gone berserk with the updates in here, though. There's a new steering wheel, there's new bits of trim, such as on the doors here. But the biggest change is the infotainment system. Now, it's 8.25-inch screen on the basic Ateca. All the other models have a larger screen like we've got here, 9.2 inches. Now, it's not as intuitive as the old infotainment system in the Ateca. I mean, it looks great, very colourful, very modern, but the system itself is a little bit laggy, the menus are a little bit confusing, and the icons themselves are a little bit small to use on the move. That's the only bad thing in here, though. The rest of the interior is great. There's an exemplary range of standard equipment, such as front LED lights and rear lights. You get cruise control, front and rear parking sensors. The driver's seat is fully height adjustable with lumbar support. You get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The list is pretty much endless. Whilst other rivals might have more interesting to look at interiors, the Ateca's is well made, well laid out, and well spec'd. In the back, and this is an area where the Ateca has always been very good. The rear doors themselves open pretty wide, so it's very easy to load those child seats and larger items. And once back here, there is plenty of space. I'm just over 5'10", and there's decent headroom. Even models with a panoramic roof, there's no shortage of space on offer. Knee room is very generous. You can spread yourself out back here, and it's very comfortable. Speaking of comfort, there's more than enough space for 2 adults back here. 3, well, it might be a little bit of a push, mostly because of the shoulder room, but also because of this high transmission tunnel. Now, this new facelifted model gets USB-C charging ports down here. In terms of storage, well, there's little pockets on the backs of the seats. The door bins are a very good size. There's a fold-down armrest with 2 cup holders. There's even a ski hatch, which makes loading longer items much, much easier. And there's easily reachable ISOFIX points in both outer seats. The only thing that's a bit of a disappointment in this car is the bench seat itself. In the VW Tiguan, this car's sister car, you can slide it backwards and forwards. And in the Skoda Karoq, you can even take the seats out, making this area just that little bit more practical. Round to the boot, and the Ateca is pretty impressive. Now, the tailgate itself opens up nice and wide. The top model, that's electric as well. And it reveals a very square and wide aperture. Now, there's 510 litres for the standard models, 485 for the models with 4-wheel drive. Now, it's very easy to fold down those rear seats. There's just little levers on either side of the boot. It's only a 60-40 folding rear seats, not 40-20-40. And you'll note that you don't have a completely flat loading area, and that's because there's no movable boot floor, unfortunately. Talking of other negatives, there's no 12-volt socket back here either, so you can't charge items up. Having said that, though, it is still a very big and usable space. Now, in terms of the tow bar, SEAT only offer one. It's an electrically deployable one. You just pull a little lever on the side of the boot, and there it appears. And that costs £750. We've got the 1.5-litre turbocharged petrol engine here. It's pushing out 150 PS, and this engine is used in a wide variety of Volkswagen Group cars. It's a good engine, nice and punchy. It's very quick to accelerate, even when you're hitched up to a Caravan. And the DSG gearbox, whilst it can be a little bit flaky in some cars, when it's mated to this 1.5 petrol, it's actually a really good fit. It slips between the gears very easily. I mean, you can even knock it into manual mode and take control with the paddles behind the steering wheel or with the gear lever, but most of the time, just leave it in drive and it does a really good job. You can still get diesel power in the Ateca and you can still get four-wheel drive, but don't dismiss the two-wheel drive petrols, the smaller capacity petrols, because they do deliver a good amount of punch and torque for their engine size. Now, I said right at the top of the video, the SEAT Ateca really showed when it launched back in 2016 that family SUVs could be both practical and fun to drive. Now, of course, that last bit is relative. An SUV, when it's high off the road, isn't exactly a sports car, is it? But out of all of these family SUVs, the Ateca was always the most fun to drive. And that was thanks to steering, which is really very accurate and alive. It's not just the steering, but the chassis as well. It just feels a lot more alive. And that's quite something, really, because this car's sister cars, the VW Tiguan and the Skoda Karoq, well, they don't feel as fun to drive as this car does. Now, it's not just the chassis and the steering, but it's also the suspension. It's on the firm side, and that translates into really good body control. Of course, the big downside to stiff suspension is ride quality can suffer. I mean, it's by no means uncomfortable. Please don't think that. It's just that when you hit a pothole, you really do feel it in this car.
The 2-litre TDI is arguably the perfect fit for towing, but don't dismiss this 1.5 TSI. When hitched, progress was strong and the combination of petrol power and an auto box gave a refined drive across the board. At no point in our test drive did we yearn for a diesel. We hitched up to a Bailey Discovery D43 and hoped the Ateca's trademark firm ride when driving solo would feel slightly softer when towing, but that wasn't the case. Rougher surfaces gave a slightly bouncy ride that rippled through the outfit, but it was never uncomfortable. We'd always trade a bit of ride comfort for more agile handling though.
So the question is, can this updated SEAT Ateca still fight it against far more modern competition in the family SUV class? Well, the answer is yes. Whilst the interior is a little bit on the dated side and the exterior, whilst there is a new nose, is still very familiar, this is still a really good family SUV. It's good to drive, it's very comfortable, and it's loaded with standard equipment. If you're in the market for a practical, fun to drive family SUV, there's more than up to the job of hauling a Caravan, this should be on your shortlist.